We have massive shakeups at Kickstarter, Knizia moves from a city to an island, and QE is coming out with a $1 trillion expansion. Coming up next. That feels like too much. Is that too much? I'm still experimenting with this whole, intro thing and having fun with it, but in any case, my name is Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. This is News and Week in Review, and none of the three things are going to be anywhere near as exciting as I tried to make them sound. Like, none of them. They're all true, to an extent, but they're not going to be that way, but it just sounds better that way, right? So let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's go ahead and dive into this. This is News and Week in Review, covering all the news, the games, the topic of the week, as well as the videos I covered this week, what I played, all the usual roundup stuff. And before we go any further, this video is sponsored by Geek & Sons Tables. Or Geek & Sons, they have the Archie gaming table over on Kickstarter. Only 9 days left to go if you want to get your hands on it, and they have been adding a whole bunch of stuff to their ongoing stretch goals, as well as addressing one of the concerns I had around the edging of the mat. They're adding these matte layers so you can fully have it even when you take out the modular boxes. Whole bunch of new things being added. It's worth taking a look if you haven't already to see what more free stuff you get, whether you like the gaming bench or whether they've addressed any of your concerns in the past 20 days or so. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the news. We only have 2 news bits this week. 2 things, starting off with massive shakeups at Kickstarter. Kickstarter's CEO, Aziz Hassan, is stepping down as CEO, so someone else going to be stepping into the role. I don't think it matters at all. I'm sure it matters to a lot of people, but as far as my day-to-day life, it's not going to impact me. As far as your day-to-day life, it probably won't impact you, unless, Aziz, you are someone who watches my show, in which case it very much does impact you. Or even if you work at Kickstarter, it might impact you then. But in any case, it's board game adjacent news, so let's go ahead and talk about it. And then, on a related aspect, we have Gamefound coming out of beta. Gamefound, the competitor to Kickstarter, basically being Kickstarter for board games with a whole bunch more things, features, all that stuff. But Gamefound's coming out of beta, opening up to everyone. Gamefound went through basically a 3-tiered phase, I think. Closed beta, where they really were very, very, very selective about what they took on. Then a slightly more open closed beta, in which they still took things on, but, they were opening up the doors a bit. And now they are completely in open beta. That does not mean inherently that your project is guaranteed to be approved. It just means that they're moving into the, hey, anyone can apply, go ahead, have fun with it, and let's see what happens here. I'm still very intrigued and curious about the Kickstarter versus Gamefound landscape, because something we've talked about on the show already, Gamefound has come to the table with a lot of new features in crowdfunding. A lot of features that I think are very, very helpful. At the same time, Gamefound has also struggled with some smaller campaigns, and I think part of that's relevant. I did a full video on this, but I think a big part of that is the proportional aspect of drive-by backing. What I mean by that is, if you are a $1 million campaign, there's a decent chance. If you're, let's think of something coming up this month. We have Sleeping Gods. Okay, Sleeping Gods, the Distant Skies is coming up on Gamefound. That has enough hype and buzz that 97% of the people backing it are going to be people that in some way knew about it, were interested, or any of those factors. And that 3% drive-by backing will likely not be noticeable in the giant shift of everyone else backing it, and then all those features that make life a little more user-friendly, those are more appreciated by the 97%. Versus when you have a smaller campaign, because of the fact that you're only inherently bringing in, let's just make up numbers here, because your campaign is only going to be bringing in 300 backers, you might have been relying on 100 drive-by backers, which amongst 10,000 backers will barely be noticed, but amongst 300 backers will very much be noticed. That's my theory, at least. That's one of my theories as to why. Because Gamefound has done tremendously well for larger campaigns, to the point that I can make a strong argument Gamefound is a better platform if you are a larger campaign with a built-in audience, versus if you're a smaller campaign, I would not be certain which one's the better move for you, and I'd probably lean towards Kickstarter. I'm not an expert on this, I'm just going from what I see work and not work for campaigns, so we'll see. Time will ultimately tell. Very excited. Obviously, there's also that news that Ravensburger partnered with Gamefound. This has been a much larger news segment than I planned on it being, which means it's time to move on to the games. The games of the week, there's a lot more games, only 2 new stuff, but a lot more in terms of games. Not a ton, I think last week had more, but a decent amount in terms of game-related news. We have DC Deck Building Game announcing that they have a 10th anniversary edition with 2 new expansions bundled in, coming to Kickstarter. This is as good a time as any for me to go ahead and try out the DC Deck Building Game, because I've actually had it on my want-to-try list for a while, and now is probably a good time to see if I should go ahead and get that, because, yeah, I need another game. That's what I need. But really, I played the original. What was the original one? I want to say, was Lord of the Rings the original one that Cryptozoa came out with a whole line of deck building games around different themes and IPs. I played the Lord of the Rings one. I played Two Towers as well. I don't believe I played the third one. I enjoyed it, but I didn't necessarily feel the need to keep it. But DC's had a solid run with them, and so I want to try it out. I want to see exactly where that one lies and how it works for me. So we'll see. I'll probably pick up a copy and go from there. We have POW Interactive acquiring Jasco Games. Jasco Games, who came with the Street Fighter Kickstarter. They have something else coming up that's been indefinitely delayed. What was it again? Mortal Kombat, I think. But POW Interactive acquired them, putting out a whole bunch of statements along the way of, you know, we value gamers and we're friendly and we value gamers and we are gamers and all those things. The air quotes don't mean it's not true. The air quotes just mean that they're clearly walking in with the understanding and knowledge that acquisitions in the board game space are often viewed as blood-sucking corporate overlord takes over small companies, sucks the joy in life out of board games. And so they're prepping for that potential reaction by letting you know that they're not blood-sucking corporate overlords. They are friendly gamers who have more money than you or I do. I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way. I really don't. I just say things sometimes. I really have no problem with larger companies, unless I have a problem with actions. Actions to me are the potential issue. I couldn't care less how much money you have. Either your action is wrong or your action is right. There's a whole nother thread of a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down that made me think of. There was a thread on Board Game Revolution, I think it was, recently, talking about the nature of punching up versus punching down. I don't believe in punching up versus punching down. I believe wrong is wrong and right is right, and you should defend the merit on its own actions. I'm not going to defend the fact that I stole $1 from you versus I stole $100 from you. Stealing is stealing. Yes, one is more wrong than the other. That doesn't mean the other one is right. So anyone who argues punching up versus punching down, I don't like that argument, personally speaking. This is a weird tangent. This is not the point of the video. Maybe I should do this for my topic of the week. Another time, not this week. I didn't prep for that one, and it was a religious conversation, so I need to actually prep for it before I dive into that rabbit hole. Anyways, moving on, we have Escape from New York coming from Pendragon Studios. They brought you The Thing on Kickstarter, The Thing, and other games too, but they're coming with Escape from New York, where you're going to go in, rescue the president, bring him out in less than 24 hours, etc., etc., etc. I mean, that has me intrigued. I'm curious. Don't know more about the game yet. Very intrigued to see what will, happen with it. But that's Escape from New York coming from Pendragon. We have Catan Dawn of Humankind, which is a new version or iteration of Catan. There have been many over the years, make no mistake, but I'm always intrigued. Catan still has a soft place in my heart as a game that I very much appreciate and enjoy what it does, while also feeling I'd rather play other games, personally speaking. But there is something magical about rolling dice and getting stuff. This magic has been captured again and again in Machikoro, in Space Base, in Valeria Card Kingdoms, in My Farm Shop, in Bad Company. There is something compelling about rolling dice and everyone gets stuff. I like that mechanic. Everyone loves that mechanic. Millions of people who have bought Catan love that mechanic, and I am intrigued to see what Catan Dawn of Humankind brings to the table in terms of the mechanics or differences or changes it does, well, in general. From there we have My Island. This is that little Knizia. Knizia moves from a city to an island, which is, I couldn't think of how exciting to make that one. I probably should have gone with, $5 million acquisition in terms of the Jasco Games one, but I don't actually have the number offhand. Either way, Knizia moves from a city to an island. Knizia has famously come out with My City, which was a legacy game across 24 games as you polyominoed your city out again and again and again and again. I enjoyed the game. I thought 24 games was possibly a bit too much for a mostly repetitive sequence of things. Again, enjoyed it. Probably would have enjoyed it just as much with 12 games. But in any case, he's coming out with My Island, and here's what we know. It has hexagons. That's what we know. You can look at the box. The box clearly has hexagons. It's still different shaped hexagons, still sequence of hexagons, but in some way, it's going to be different than My City. We have Warcrow coming from Corvus Belli. I know nothing about this yet. I just know that Warcrow is coming from Corvus Belli. Ta-da! They're the ones that came out with Infinity. They recently came out with the... What was the game? What was the game on Kickstarter they came out with? I can't remember the name of it, but they came out with a game on Kickstarter recently. They are more famous for Infinity, and they're coming out with Warcrow in some way, shape, or form, whatever that is. We have Bridge Constructor Breaking Point coming to you from the creators of Binding Isaac. Bridge Constructor is an app I've actually played, where you construct a bridge, roll trucks across it, and hope it actually succeeds. It's compelling. The app, that is, it's a compelling app. I can't remember how long ago I played it, but I have definitely played it a long time ago. Or honestly, for all I know, I played a different version of the app that does the same thing. Point is, I've played a game on my phone where I construct bridges and then roll things across it, hoping the bridge survives, okay? That's what I know for sure. Past that, they're coming out with a board game version of Bridge Constructor, Breaking Point. I am intrigued to see how this plays out. I like the idea of this. I just don't know how it functionally works on a board game presentation. I'm intrigued. Call me curious. We have Uprising Titans coming to you over on Gamefound. This is from the Uprising Curse of the Last Emperor. They have the expansion over on Gamefound. You can check that out. They have a thing as well. You can sign up for a raffle to get a free pledge. Check all that stuff. Follow the campaign. The usual things. In general, I recommend following anything you are remotely interested in, because you could always just not back. Also, with Gamefound, much as I love Gamefound, I do hate how many emails you get when you follow something. You do get a lot of emails forever. It's easy to turn them off. It takes like a second and a half, but I am really lazy, and so I still have emails coming in from, and I know I put out like 10 million videos a week, but that's because I focus on the things I want to do, and I kind of just push off everything else, including unsubscribing from stuff. So I still have emails coming to me from, I don't know, really old campaigns that I clicked follow once upon a time, and I never bothered clicking unfollow to stop getting all the emails. I just hit delete on the email instead. I should probably fix that. That's a me problem, but either way. Then lastly, we have that QE bit. QE comes out with $1 trillion expansion, and basically they should have an expansion called Commodities. A Commodities expansion for QE coming out. The expansion is going to add a few things, but it adds an interesting mechanic where the second place bid reduces the winning bid by that amount, sort of. So it's an interesting mechanic that kind of forces QE into a slightly more balanced state. I say slightly more balanced because I reviewed QE. I gave it a 4 to 5 because of how freaking enjoyable it is, but with the caveat that QE, I legitimately believe, is broken. I believe that QE only survives by the grace of the players playing the game and choosing to play for fun instead of for winning. Any player who tried to play QE for winning would win or make the game entirely not fun for everyone else, but they'd win. Here's how you win QE. It's a guaranteed bet, okay? Your first bet has to be a magnitude larger than the largest bet you've ever played with until now. So for example, if you're playing QE for the first time, make your first bet $1 billion. Okay? Then make your second bet $1 trillion. Make your third bet $1 gazillion. Keep escalating the magnitude of the bids for the first 5 or 6 bids. Okay? With me so far? Then, once you feel you've gotten 5 or 6 things, stop escalating your bids. Then reduce it down and drop it down as the other players catch on to the game you're playing, and they've now escalated to whatever order of magnitude you've gone with, but meanwhile you've locked in 5 or 6 things, and they're all kind of semi-struggling to balance around the new economy of the game. That's how you guaranteed win QE every single time. Granted, you will always have to escalate your bid to the new order of magnitude that the new group has come out with, because at some point you're going to have people starting off the first bid of the game with 10 to the 0.0000 bid. But you would win. You would guaranteed win the game every single time, because as soon as somebody... I'm getting off track here. Point is, I think QE is broken. I think QE is generally broken, although I have fun every time I play it because we aren't those people. We like playing for fun, so we kind of keep pretending that there's an economy that we're not going to destroy in 3 seconds. It somehow works. But either way, QE is coming out with an expansion. This is why I said QE is coming out with $1 trillion expansion, because, I mean, it will be trillions of dollars when you start playing. Anyways, but QE Commodities, that's an expansion that partially, potentially fixes the game, but it also fixes a game that I have fun every time I play it, so I'm not overly concerned with that. So we'll see. I'll definitely pick it up, don't get me wrong. And that is going to be all the games of the week, which brings me to the topic of the week. But first, coffee break. Sorry, just need coffee. Topic of the week is as follows. Okay, here we go. The nature of luck. This is based on a comment that I haven't had a chance to reply to. I'll probably try to reply to it if I remember. There's lots of comments come through. I see all of them. If I have a chance, I reply. I reply a lot, don't get me wrong, but there's always more comments than there are replies. But this is a comment asking me about my luck dinging. Meaning, I frequently will put into either what I don't like or what I can see others not liking, luck. Okay, when I review a game, I will either note it as a personal dislike or as a potential dislike for you that a game has some form of luck. I don't note it all the time, but I note it a decent amount. And the question I got was around the nature of, and I'm trying to remember the exact nature or phrasing of the question, but it was around a twofold aspect. One, why I don't ding all games for luck, because lots of games that have luck in them, I mean, I don't ding everything, so I kind of am selective with my dings. I ding that enough that it's clearly an issue for me, or an issue I see it being potentially an issue for you, but also I don't ding it with everything. And the second question, which was aligned with the first, is, but then don't basically every single game, doesn't every single game have luck? So the answer to the second part is, mostly yes, mostly every single game has luck. There are certainly exceptions out there where it's all about player agency. So for example, a common example would be Kalis. Okay, this is a game that has 0 luck in it. There's not a single point in the game in which luck is a factor. What is a factor is other players and their choices. So you have to make decisions around other players, but you have all the information starting off the bat. There is no risk of the unknown or pulling something from a bag, of having card draws, of rolling dice. None of that is a factor. So you're basically playing a game that's an abstract to an extent. An abstract with a whole lot of theme and decisions around it, but at its core, it has no luck in it. So that's definitely a factor here. So, meaning to answer the first question, yes, there are games out there, fantastic games, that have no luck, or very, very tiny, minuscule amounts of luck, and they're great games. That's fine. But I want to address the first part about the nature of luck and why I ding some games and not others. Now, the first part I want to clarify there is sometimes I note it as what I can see others not liking. Meaning it's not even an issue for me, but I understand that others may have a problem with the luck, and so I do want to call it out. And the question is a fair question, because I don't call it out consistently. Luck is present in a lot of things. If you ever have a deck of cards, you probably have luck in there, and I'm less likely to call it out when it comes to a deck of cards. Less likely. Not likely, but less likely. And I think the answer I would give, I know the answer I would give, because I'm giving it now, is to me, luck is not an actual problem in and of itself. It's the feeling of luck that's a problem. And that's where it starts getting into this, decision call, of judgment call, of me trying to predict whether I personally felt that I was a victim of luck, which is an easy judgment call. I either do or don't feel that way, or whether I think there's enough luck that I think you might feel victim to the luck. That's when I call it out. That's when I ding a game. And yes, it is a judgment call, because you could have someone who feels that any luck is already a crime and a problem and something they don't like in games. And you could have people who feel that they could have tons of dice rolling left, right, and center, and it's not an issue at all in the slightest. For me, I call out luck when I think there is the concern that the player playing would believe that their agency is limited, that their decisions have less meaning because of the fact that luck can play a part in their decisions. They can tactically plan the best possible game, but then they roll poorly, and it is what it is. So that's when I call it out. Now, when is that happening? When does it happen? And that's a bit all over the place because it's a harder question to answer. The first aspect that I'll touch upon, and honestly, if I really wanted to flesh out this topic, it could be a full video unto itself, but I'm kind of just going off the cuff here. But the first issue is dice rolling. For me, if I am rolling dice in a few pivotal moments in the game, and that's it, then I tend to feel that luck can be an issue. Because if I'm rolling dice, let's say in like 4 battles across the whole game, and that's it, then that 4 rolls is not enough of a statistical layout that I can easily be victim to the luck. You're like, but you can mitigate this way, you could have built your ship that way, you could have gotten those upgrades, sure, but there's 4 battles. Someone else could not get those things and roll well, and someone else could get those things and still roll poorly. You could have all those conversations on the table. And so I tend to be concerned when you have dice rolling in small but notable situations, okay? That's the first issue I have with dice. Where I don't have an issue with dice is when you are rolling giant handfuls of dice left, right, and center. So if you're playing a game like Massive Darkness, like Zombicide, like, I don't know, what's a battle-heavy game with tons of dice rolling? Cyclades has a decent amount of combat, so that there's a die in Cyclades. It's fairly limited. Cyclades is a good example, actually. Cyclades has a die for combat. It is added on to your die, and it's only 0, 1, 2, or 3. It does not go up to 6, so it doesn't have as much of a swing, and the 0 and the 3 are statistically less likely. But the combat is frequent enough in Cyclades that I kind of feel it's fine. And the impact is not the whole battle, it's a single unit getting removed. I am fine with the dice rolling in Cyclades because of how prevalent it is and because of the limited scope of its impact. But I can certainly see you having a problem with it because there is still enough dice rolling that someone can win a game of Cyclades because they rolled better than you across enough rolls. For me, the term across enough rolls is usually enough for me to not be as concerned with it. I assume statistical probability will rear its head at some point and that things will average out. Not across 4 rolls, but across 15 rolls, across 20 rolls, and of course it doesn't necessarily have to average out, but usually it will. So that's my first issue. My first non-issue and issue. I also don't mind dice in terms of cooperative games. When I'm playing a game like Zombicide or Massive Darkness or whatever, if I'm rolling a whole lot of dice and bad rolls or good rolls happen, in a cooperative experience it doesn't bother me. I don't mind luck against the machine as much, but I do mind luck against other players more. Across the nature of the cooperative state of the game, I don't know why, I don't have a firm answer as to why, but kind of like winning or losing on statistical probabilities or lack of probabilities, whatever it is, if we roll just 1s again and again and again, or if we roll 6s again and again and again, in a cooperative experience it feels like we're enjoying that moment for better or for worse together. But in competitive games, it just kind of feels like I'm being screwed. It's not a firm definition as to why that is. It's just a feeling that I personally have. I'll still call it out, though, as something you might have a problem with, because there's lots of luck in the game. I also don't like luck when there's a lot... I don't like dice rolling when there's a lot of tough... Like, a good example can be Kingdoms Forlorn, where you have a ton of decision space and 8 steps of combat and a whole process you go through as far as these tons of things you have to be mindful of and manage, and at the end of it, you roll a die. And I don't love that, either. I don't like the balance. Kind of give me the handful of dice in Zombicide, or give me Cyclades where it's very limited in the scope, and there's a lot of tactical combat, but it's limited in the scope of impact. A game like Kingdoms Forlorn, where the dice has a very large impact, while you have to manage a ton of other things to even get to that point, I don't like that either. It's that personal mix. So that's a big factor there. From there, let's talk about cards, because cards is the other one. Decks of cards will more often than not fall into the category of what I can see others not liking if I talk about it at all. And that usually depends on the game. And I don't have firm examples here, but a deck builder is going to be a good example where I tend to not be concerned with luck. And I usually won't even put it into the category of what I can see others not liking. The very nature of a deck builder is you're building your own statistical probability around your deck. So yes, luck is absolutely a factor. You know, depending on how you build your deck versus how I build my deck, you still might get cards that combo better just because of luck. But to me, if the entire game is about building that probability stack, I don't really care. I mean, it kind of, again, it might be a factor for you. I never really feel that it's luck that's an issue. I feel it's the way I built my deck, even though luck is there. Because again, to me, luck is more about a feeling than it is about a fact. And so that will hold true in any game I play, or anytime I ding a game for luck or not for luck. It ultimately comes down to, do I feel like my agency was personally restricted by the luck? And even if I didn't, do I feel that it felt even remotely prevalent enough that you might be bothered by it? But there still might be luck in a game, and you still might be bothered at it, and I might not call it out. It all comes down to whether I felt that was there. Richard Garfield actually did a fantastic talk. If I can find it, I'll link to it down below. It was a conversation around the nature of luck in game design, and how you kind of want luck to be a little bit there. And the reason for it is because if you have a drop of luck, then when the player loses the game, it's easier for them to be like, I played well, but like, you know, not everything was in my favor. I mean, it gives them a get out of jail free card to say they played well because they can blame luck, as opposed to if you're playing chess, you can't really blame luck. And so that's its own separate conversation as to the nature of ourselves and whether we actually want to be accountable. Meaning we might think we're being good sports, when in reality, in the subconscious part of our brain, we're like, I can be a good sport because really I should have won anyway. And so he likes having a little bit of luck in his game design so that can be a get out of jail free card to allow the players to enjoy and experience the game a bit more. And so that's basically luck for me. That's a shorter conversation topic around it, but to me it comes down to whether I feel you will sense the luck. Not to whether luck is there, but whether you will sense the impact it has on your gameplay in a way that is frustrating. And if I think there's a chance of that, that's when I include it. Not whether it is or isn't in the game. From there, let's move into what I played. Starting off the bat, as usual, not everything has been logged. Discard, all plays. Going back to last week. Okay, we have Crokinole and Crokinole. A whole bunch of games of Crokinole. This was a very Crokinole heavy week, and this is not the last time you're going to hear about it either. A whole bunch of plays of Crokinole. Got in a play of Age of Rome. Got in a play of Skulls of Sedlec. Age of Rome I already reviewed on the channel. We'll talk about it shortly. Got in a play of Skulls of Sedlec with the expansions. Got in a play of that with my daughter. What did we play? We played with the Poets, the Dead Poets, not Dead Poets, just the Poets expansion. Enjoyed that. I plan on diving into more of the expansions, probably doing a full re-review of it at some point once I play them all. Got to play of 10 Penny Parks with my son and daughter. We played 10 Penny Parks for the first time from Thunderworks Games. We'll be talking about that more shortly. I got in a few plays of Decorum. Decorum is something that will be going up on the channel today, I believe. My review of Decorum will be going up. You can check that out for more information. Then later we got Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. I'm still diving into that with a friend. I started diving into Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion myself, then I stopped and restarted because I was going through it with my friend. We're currently up to Mission 5 now. We just finished Mission 4, so we'll be diving into Mission 5 together shortly. We almost played it last night. Instead, we played Brass, Lancashire. No losses there. We have the Dark Quarter. I started diving into the Dark Quarter from Lucky Duck Games and Van Ryder Games. We'll be talking about that more in a review. More plays of 10 Penny Parks. We got another play of that in. We got Modern Art, a Knizia game. Got a play in of Modern Art, an older classic Knizia, for the first time. Really enjoyed it. Very interesting game. Basically, it's all about auctioning off paintings and trying to predict who's going to be the most popular artist. Works well, plays quickly enough, 45 minutes, not that quickly, but it was a good game. We had 5 players, and we didn't have a lot of 5-player games we knew, so I pulled that one out. It's 2 pages of rules. We got it up and going, and Modern Art. We have Mission Catastrophe. We played that next because we had 5 players. Mission Catastrophe coming to you from Cardboard Alchemy. This is the first time I've played it since the Kickstarter, which is good news and bad news. The good news is I played it, had fun. The bad news is I want to play it again with the expansions because I've never played with the expansions yet, and I did not get a chance to do that. Once I play with the expansions, I'll probably in some way be doing content on it again. We have Crokinole again and again and again and again. Another 4 plays of Crokinole. Crokinole is a game where you kind of play it, and then you're just up until 3 in the morning continuing to play it. It's a fantastic game. Got a play of Trails. Trails is going to come to you from Keymaster Games. Keymaster? I think it's Keymaster. It sounds right. But they brought you Parks, and they brought you Trails, which is a more accessible version of Parks. I'll be talking about it more in some future content, so I'm not heavily going to talk about it now. We have Pandemic Fall of Rome. I don't know if I'll be reviewing this one or not. It depends if I play it more. Pandemic Fall of Rome, I dived into it for the first time. I enjoyed it, but like most Pandemic offshoots, I don't feel the need to keep it. I may be playing it again, though, because the person I played it with was much more compelled by it than I was, and so to that end, we might play it again just for the sake of him diving into it more, and we wanted to escalate the difficulty. Again, if I get more plays in, I'll probably cover it in a full review. If not, then I will not. We have Brass Birmingham. I got into play of Brass Birmingham for the first time. What I will say is I loved it, really enjoyed it. I will not tell you which one I preferred yet because that's going to be its own dedicated video. Because I played both Birmingham and Lancashire this week. Birmingham for the first time, Lancashire I've played plenty, and we'll talk about it. Seven Wonders, got to play of Seven Wonders with the Leaders expansion. I generally only play it with the Leaders nowadays. I still want to try the new expansion. I have not played Armada yet. I really need to play it. I own it, I just haven't played it yet. We have Cockroach Poker Royale. Got another play of that in. We have Citadels. Citadels is a game that might be going on my cull pile. I think it should go on my cull pile. I played Citadels. I enjoyed it, like I always do. But I had a less ideal play than usual. And I don't know, Citadels is a good game. I enjoy Citadels. It's a solid 3.5 out of 5 for me. I feel, though, it tends to fall into this semi-filler category that I would rather play other games in that semi-filler category. So I'm not confident on whether Citadel stays. It might be showing up in my next, games leaving the collection video. I've had a lot of fun with it. I've played Citadels a lot over the years, but I play it, twice a year maybe, and each time I play it, I'm kind of like, that was fun, but I'm never blown away. It's always a good game, not a great game. We have 10 Penny Parks. Got another play of 10 Penny Parks in. We'll be covering that. I just want to play it. Basically, all my plays have been at 3 or 4 players so far. I want to get in a 2-player game, and then I'll be reviewing it. We have Nightmare Cathedral. Got in play of Nightmare Cathedral. That was really solid. Got in 2 plays of that. 1 at 2 and at 3 players. That was a really solid game. Really enjoyed it. It was a late arrival Kickstarter Gamefound prototype. Showed up, basically 2 days before the campaign launched. So I didn't have a lot of time to dive into it. But managed to get a 2-player game and a 3-player game. And really enjoyed it. Nightmare Cathedral, it was surprisingly good. We'll talk about it more in my videos of the week, but it was really... I don't like the art at all. I don't like the theme at all. I have some nitpicks and complaints, but I really, really enjoyed the core system. Then we have Decorum. Gotten 2 more plays of Decorum. As you can see, we're playing Decorum a lot. Gotten a play of Brass Lancashire. Brass Lancashire, which I just told you about briefly, but that was instead, we're going to play Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. A 3rd person showed up, so we're like, let's play Brass Lancashire, because I want to get a back-to-back video. I want to get a back-to-back play, so I could be, while it's fresh in mind, compare them. And then got to play in a Game Stormers, which is an upcoming Kickstarter. And then, lastly, got in my first play of Jurassic World Legacy of Isle Nublar, or something like that, whatever it is. But I got a play of that, just a tutorial game so far, so I am not sold by any means, while also having enjoyed myself. The tutorial game, for context, it's fine. I mean, the sequence of actions was fine, but it's fine the way My City was fine, and Jurassic World is significantly more expensive than My City. That said, this is just a tutorial game, so, hold your horses. I will have coverage up before the campaign ends. I will have coverage up of Jurassic World. Again, I did enjoy it. It's not my hesitancy has nothing to do with whether I enjoyed it or not. It's to do with the fact that I enjoyed Jurassic World and I enjoyed My City, and tutorial missions were equitable. Price is not. So that's where I may have shifted hands. Whatever it is, you get the point. So I plan on continuing to dive into it, and then we'll see where I end up. This is not a review. This is a starting off on a good but also hesitant cause price foot, if that makes sense. But that's what I played. That's everything I played, which means it's time to dive into, what time is it? Oh my gosh, this video's always run way too late. Alright. Time to dive into the videos of the week. The videos of the week, starting off with Saturday. Saturday we had a, Saturday we had a review for Cartographers Heroes. This is talking about Cartographers Heroes and the map packs, and also in context of the greater Cartographers ecosystem. Short version there is I really enjoy Cartographers Heroes. I don't know if you need it if you already have Cartographers and enjoy Cartographers, although I do recommend the map packs for bringing you more content and expansion, whatever. The base game of Cartographer Heroes is worth it for the extra scenario cards, the extra, the cards, the goal cards, if you find yourself being someone who plays through Cartographers enough that you want that extra variety. So overall positive review with the hesitancy of do you need it or not. Then we had later on Saturday, we had a review for the Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders. To me, I believe, and I probably titled this incorrectly, I called it like 100% essential expansion, which it is not. It's probably the wrong terminology. I will never play Lost Ruins of Arnak without the expansion again. That's what I meant when I said that. The problem is I got some people who are like, I don't like it when a base game is fixed by the expansion. The base game wasn't fixed by the expansion. I loved Lost Ruins of Arnak before. I just think this expansion is significantly better and no downsides to it. I mean, a little bit of rules overhead. But I really enjoy the expansion. The base game is great without the expansion, but the expansion is just really solid. It lets me do more stuff. I did see one comment from somebody who said he does not like the expansion because it kind of forces your characters into a lane that you have to specialize in, which is a fair comment. It's not one that bothers me, but there are games where that does bother me. There are certainly games where I feel forced into a lane where I do feel completely restricted. I don't have a firm answer as to why it doesn't bother me in Arnak. What I will say is I feel that the lane you get forced into is usually such a small one component aspect of the larger game that you're playing that I don't feel like really forced. I feel like, okay, great, of the 5 things I was planning on looking at, this one I should definitely do, and the other 3 I can still choose. So I still feel enough agency that I like the extra stuff it lets me do, while recognizing that that is a valid complaint that I should have put in my review. Then, on Sunday we had Why I Won't Back Games with Bad Art. This is a video talking about the nature of bad art in games and how that affects my own opinion or judgment call of them. And partially this is inspired by the fact that I have taken on many projects in the past, taken on projects to cover, to review, because I'm like, hey, the game looks like garbage, but I usually, and it looks like garbage. Yes, I do get games that look like garbage. I don't say it looks like garbage, but I'll think it looks like garbage. My standard response to every inquiry that I get for can you cover my game is can you send me the rulebook. That's my standard response. I don't care if the game looks like an amazing game. I don't care if the game looks like absolute garbage, unless I already know something about the game in some way, shape, or form. Like the Dark Quarter, we need a rulebook, I already knew was based on Destiny, so that's a different conversation. But in general, if I don't know enough about the game, I say, please send me a rulebook so I can look into it. At that point, I look into the rules and I make a judgment call based on the rules. The problem with that is that approach has led to me taking on games that look bad, in my opinion, but hey, the rules look like a game that actually I was interested in, so I go ahead and cover it. And then practically speaking, I do that because I'm trying to, it's a balance of trying to be supportive of smaller creators, while also I'm not going to take on a game where the game doesn't appeal to me. So I kind of try to overlook the art and then take on the project anyway. And then what happens is time and time again, whenever I have done this, and I can't think of a single exception offhand. I want to go through my backing history. I want to go through my backing history and see if there's an exception. But in general, every time I've taken on a project that my gut instinct was, no, I'm not going to back that, and then I look at the rules and I'm like, actually, it looks pretty good. Whenever I do that, the project fails. Because other people, everyone else is doing the same thing I'm doing, they're also taking a look at the project and saying, not for me. And then the project fails and does not succeed. Sometimes they do fund the second time round. I will give them that. Sometimes I can think of a few that the game does fund the second time round, but in general, yeah. And so there's a whole video about this. There's a video about that conversation, that topic, and it bothers and frustrates me when a game doesn't have good art. I recognize the limitations involved with being a smaller creator. I recognize that. But it still means you're setting yourself up for failure. If you're not willing to, willing is the wrong term. If you're not able to put in that initial upfront work, it may not be fair, it may be not right, it may be frustrating, but it still means that you have a higher chance of failure. A significantly higher chance of failure. Then on Monday we had 2 back or not to back, covering all the games. Lots of games, lots of things. We had Jurassic World, we had Encyclopedia, we had Ares Expedition, we had Tidal Blades, a whole bunch of amazing games launching on Monday. Great games. I'm backing probably too many of them. Not all of them, but I'm backing probably too many of them. Then on Tuesday On Tuesday, we had 3 reviews, as usual. We had a review for Age of Rome, gave that one a 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed Age of Rome with having a few critiques around it. My biggest critique, my side point critique, was actually that aspect of the feeling forced into a path. That was a small nitpick, it wasn't a big deal, but I did feel forced into a path with whatever character I chose. The bigger critique is I didn't like the fact that the various paths you took in no way interwove. Like going back to Lost Ruins of Arnak, everything you do on one path does have an impact on all the other things in the other path. Whereas in Age of Rome, like 3 of the 4 paths you can take are basically just endgame points and have no game impact on the rest of the engine. And so that bothered me a bit. I like the game. I think it's a good game, but the lack of interweavingness made it feel a little less complex or interesting in the decisions I was making. I enjoyed my time with it, while also feeling it was good but not great for myself. Then later on Tuesday, we had a review for Subastral from Renegade Games. This is another 3.5 out of 5. The difference is this one's a small, short filler game, and I tend to be easier on those. Subastral's sticking around for right now. Age of Rome, for context, I'm probably not backing, but Subastral is a game that's sticking around for right now. I really enjoy it. I do think it has a limited shelf life. I think it's fun, and I enjoy the puzzle, but I also don't sense it sticking around forever. It's one of those games where I think I'm going to have fun with it, and then, I don't know, 4 months from now or 4 years from now, you'll see it in a Games Leaving the Collection video. Then lastly, on Tuesday, we had a review for Nightmare Cathedral. A 4 out of 5 in this one. Really enjoyed it. I can see it going up to a 4.5 out of 5. It depends on the final game. I had nitpicks about a bunch of small things I would love to see changed, but if they weren't changed, I'd still enjoy the game. One of my big things, I just felt the Cathedral was a kind of unnecessary in the way they did it. I mean, the game's called the Nightmare Cathedral, but the way you sort of build it just felt tedious and maintenance and annoying, and they have to improve that copy there. Like the way the pieces go together and the way you stack them on the board at the end of every turn was just irritating. But either way, the actual game itself, really enjoyed it. Solid action selection system, lots of upgrading your actions, really enjoy upgrading actions in games, and I really enjoy the quick, fast-paced area control while not being heavily and overly focused on area control. Really enjoyed Nightmare Cathedral, definitely backing that one, 4 out of 5. On Wednesday, I did a video for the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund auction. This was basically just me trying to, in some way, spread awareness about the event. Nothing really past that. It's always that balance of, if you ever use your platform too much to talk about too many things that your audience doesn't necessarily care about, then you start losing your audience. But there's always a balance of trying to talk about things when and where you can. In my case, I think the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund is a fantastic event. I think it's a fantastic fund. Not event, a fund. I think it's a great fund that is very supportive of the gaming hobby, the people in the gaming hobby, and it's amazing that this resource exists. I would never want to be in a position where I have to benefit from it. And generally, my stance is, if I don't want to benefit from your thing, then I want to support your thing. I want to be connected to the thing. I just want to be connected to it from the way I choose, as opposed to the way life chooses for me. And so that is, I think it's a great fund to support something that might be a resource you may have to call on one day, and to try to be involved and invested in the gaming community in more than just playing games. On Thursday, I did a video for upcoming Kickstarters for April. This is always a popular video because it talks about all the Kickstarters coming up for April. We have a bunch of things coming up, although interestingly enough, very few things that I think are insta-back for me. Instabacks. In fact, not a single thing, I have to go through it again, not a single thing in that video is an insta-back for me. And there's context to them. There's a whole bunch of things. There's Dark Quarter, there's Paradox Initiative, there's Anastyr, a whole bunch of things. And make no mistake, I think I will be backing things. That's not my point at all. But there's a difference between backing things and I know I'm backing things. And going through the list off on top of my head, I don't think there was anything in that video that is I'm definitely backing that game for sure. I think there are things I'm interested in backing, and I still have to wait and see and decide. Anastyr is probably the most likely. I mean, I generally back Mythic games, even if I'm not that certain, because I know that they hold their value, and so that's usually more of a balance. So Anastyr is most likely the only one that's insta-back, but we'll see on that one. But either way, moving on to Friday. Friday was a fun video. Apologies in advance if you already watched it. Friday was 10 games I'm taking out of the top 100. 10 games I would take out of the top 100, done together with Devin Norse. I want to be very clear, it was his idea and his fault. You can go ahead and subscribe to him over on Devin Talks Tabletop and tell him how you really feel about it. I enjoyed the video. I thought it was a lot of fun. I hope you did as well. Obviously, we're wrong. I'm just say that. Obviously, we're wrong. And then today we have a Canvas Reflections and Canvas base game review. I already covered the base game, but I'm reviewing the expansion and covering the base game again at the same time. And then later today, we have a review going up for Decorum. I recommend checking that one out as well. Solid game, I'll say that. You can watch the review for more information, but I enjoyed Decorum more than I thought I would. And then lastly, next week coming up, we have a few things. We have games leaving the collection. That will be coming up late next week. And then I also will probably, not for sure, I will probably be ranking all 160-ish games that I've played this quarter, meaning first quarter 2022. What I think I'm doing, it's a bit of a twist from a video series I've done. There was a video series I started doing for a while that I sort of temporarily stopped. There's a reason why, we'll talk about it another time. But there's a video talking about, like, hey, here are the 30 games I've reviewed this month, or whatever it is, and going through them, not 30, whatever it is, 20 games I've reviewed this month. Let's talk with them and tell you, like, try to be harsher with them. I stopped doing that for a variety of reasons. I plan on bringing it back at some point, but in lieu of that, it's just too much overlap because of the types of videos I'm doing. But what I plan on doing in lieu of that is once a quarter, I will cover, and in order, I'm going to rank, here's the 160 different games I played, new and old, and rank them in order so that you can get a feeling for, hey, Alex likes this, but he likes that more than this across the 160-ish games that I've played in the past 3 months. And I'll probably be doing, I'm going to be aiming for doing that once a quarter. So we'll see. Hopefully that goes up. There will be timestamps. There will not be, like, pictures or titles or all that. Way too many games. There will be timestamps, that's what I'll say. From there, games on the table. Speaking of playing games, we have a few games on the table, some of which I've played, some of which I have not. In fact, 3 of which I've played. Okay, we have 4 Signs. I want to table this again. I've only gotten 1 play of it in. I really want to get to the table again. We have Welcome to the Moon, which I've been really enjoying. Really enjoying. I want to break it out again. We have Jaws of the Lion, which I was supposed to play this week and did not, so I want to play it again. And then lastly, we have Cape May from Thunderworks Games, which I have not played and would love to table this one. So we'll see what ends up happening with this. From last week's games, I've played 2 of them. Sort of in the middle of what's it called? Geez, I'm sort of in the middle of Machina Arcana, and then I played, I can't remember. I did not play Power Rangers, and I did play the other 2, but I can't remember what was on the table. But anyways, that is it. This has been your Week in Review. Thanks for sticking around for way too long, as usual. As always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good one.